Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Julie's Orchids. Today, we're going to mount an orchid. We're going to take that little Dendrobium and we're going to put it on that piece of cork. That's what we're doing today, so stick around. Okay, so before we get going, we are going to take this little species Dendrobium, and that's what it is, and we're going to take it out of this styrofoam and we're going to put it on this mount. Why am I doing that when I usually don't do a lot of mounts? Well, pretty simple. This particular Dendrobium is an Eastern Australian native, and it grows up the side of ironbark trees. Ironbark is a form of a eucalypt, and they are known for having very deep grooves in their bark. So I've got some groovy and ridgy cork. This has been used in the past, but I've cleaned it up and put some boiling water on it. I spoke with Nina over at Ninja Orchids on how to go about reusing cork mounts, and so she suggested to pour boiling water over it and then to turn it over and pour boiling water over it. So I've done that and it's dried out, and we're going to put this on that. And yes, that's not a very big piece of cork, but these aren't very big plants. Now, I did see a picture on the internet that I'm sure I cannot use here, but it showed a mature adult flowering size plant on a piece of cork about this big, and there was probably 10 or 15 or 20 pseudobulbs. So I think this is going to be a perfect size piece of cork for that plant to live on very happily for the next several years. So to start things off with, we got to get this little guy out of the pot and the roots away from all this styrofoam. I absolutely do not like styrofoam as a potting medium because the little balls of it get absolutely everywhere. So I've soaked this plant for a few hours to wetten the roots. That piece is not coming off so gently, so it's going to stay. Anyway, I spoke with Nina over at Ninja Orchids, and she suggested that I give this a little CalMag soak before I mount it. So I've done that, and it was at very, very low parts per million, I think about 100. So the roots here aren't looking so spectacularly great, but also not spectacularly bad. We've got a few dead ones. These are pretty obviously dead. And so I'm just going to carefully trim these off. And that one's dead from there down. Now, one thing that they mentioned at the society meeting is to have a good look at where the new growths are coming off. So I think this is possibly where the newest growths are going to come from. So I'm going to try to kind of, and I'm sort of stuck with the holes that I already have. So I want to put it down here where these two lowest holes are to be able to pop in about like that. And then, or do I want to do it like that? And give it room to grow down. So I'm kind of stuck with where the holes are already located at here. I could just use the wire and wrap it all the way around, and actually I think that's what I might do. But we'll go ahead and get rid of the mess down here. Give this a little bit of a rinse off, see if I can't get these little tiny balls of styrofoam off of the plant. Again, I'm going to say I really dislike styrofoam as a potting medium. These are the cutest little, look how little tiny those pseudobulbs are. So cute. Okay, now, so we've gotten everything all tidied up. There is still little bits of styrofoam here or there. So I don't like styrofoam because you get little bits of it everywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with my fishing line, and I'm just going to put it through one of these holes, and I'm going to tie it off so that basically I've got one side of the fishing line already secured to the mount, and I think it will make for wrapping it a little bit easier. So I'm just doing a couple of knots here, and I'm sure that all of my fishermen friends are like, oh my Lord, Julie, what sort of a knot are you doing? I'm not catching any fish with this, so I just need to hold a mount on, and I don't need to do any special knots, but there we go. So we've got that sort of anchored. I'm going to cut that little hairy bit off here so it doesn't look so ugly hanging around. There you go. So now from here, what I'm going to do with the remaining fishing line is just sort of do a wraparound like that. And now the trick is, how do we put the plant on the mount? So I kind of want it facing down so that when I water, the water won't get stuck in the crowns. So I kind of want it facing down, but I want it to have room for these roots to kind of attach. So yeah, I think I'm going to want it something. Actually, no, I think I am just going to let it grow up because we've got these nice grooves right there. I can lay these roots out any. Nope. All right. So this little piece of styrofoam. Oh, yes, score. And because I do want it to have room to grow. Well, you know, I think right there is going to do it. Oh. Yeah, I think right there will do it. And I didn't notice this little dead root. I'll snip that right off. I think that right there will do it. I'm going to lay a little bit of pre-moistened spag moss over the roots, and then we're going to wrap it around. So I don't need a lot of spag moss, but I've gotten this pre-wet. And again, I'm not going to use a lot because what they did really stress at the orchid meeting is that these things like to dry out fairly quickly. So I'm not sure that this is going to be the best plant for my collection, but we'll see. I'm just squeezing out the excess water. Trying to get that a little bit fluffy again. Okay, now I think that's going to do it for me. So now we're just going to take this fishing line and kind of just weave it around to anchor things onto the mount pretty good. And I'm not pulling super hard against this. And yes, I am going to leave that little root sticking out, so I can kind of monitor how it's doing. And I think one more right through here, and maybe one right there. And I'm going to call that good. So I'm going to pull a little bit of extra string out, and I'm going to gently lay this down. And then I'm just going to And hopefully I kept this tight enough that when I turn this over, nothing's going to fall off. And then we'll just trim this little bit of excess there. And oh, there we go. Very good. That looks pretty nice. I'm kind of happy with that. Now, what am I going to do with this tag? Well, I'm going to update today's date. And then I'm just going to sort of I'm going to poke a hole in it and I'm going to tie it to the mount there. So as you can see, I just made a little hole in it right there. And I've got a twisty tie that has previously been used to hold on the tag to that mount. So I'm just going to do the same thing with that. And they actually had it tied underneath here. Well, there we have it. A mounted orchid on Julie's orchids. Now, this is already wet spag moss, so I shouldn't need to water this anymore. But this is going to hang on the mount stand in the grow room, along with the other ones. And I'll go put that in its new home, and we'll come right back. Okay, so we've got our little Dendrobium on its mount, hanging on the mount rack in the grow room with the other mounts. So we'll zoom on in, have a look at this little happy guy. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. A subscribe would be great. And everyone have a fabulous day.